Hello, I'm Hannah Bushbaum, co-founder of the Wsource. You're listening to the WWisdom series. The Wsource is an exclusive network of female professionals and service providers who are interested in growing their referral network and their businesses. The Wisdom series is a forum to hear from the experts within our membership. To learn more about how you can benefit from connecting with professional women across the nation, visit thewsource.com. Welcome, everybody. I am Hannah Bushbaum, co-founder of the Wsource, and I'm joined today for our next Wisdom series. And I'm joined with Jennie James from A Different Answer. Jennie is a member of our Seattle chapter and a fantastic career leading to her being a debt coach. But beyond just being a debt coach, she's got some great tips for us now that our budgets are perhaps stretched with the various different degrees of impact of COVID, as well as just some great reminders. As a financial advisor, in addition to being the co-founder of the Wsource, I was really thrilled to have Jennie's information today. I think it's applicable to any of us who are reconsidering what the new normal is going to be for 2021. And I think it's a great way to kick off the new year. Jennie, welcome.
Well, thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited because it's a new passion of mine. Sort of, it's been building a long time, but it's a new passion. And I imagine that a number of you, if not everybody, like myself, is wondering, where's my American dream? What has happened to my dream? What has happened to my future? How could this be so crazy? And lots of people out there seeking a different answer for what's going on and how they're going to handle it. Interestingly enough, and mostly important, that this is really about self-recognition. We'll start with that because it's important. I know a lot of us talk about empowerment, and we talk about granting empowerment or helping people find empowerment. Empowerment is a great thing, but sometimes it can imply that some other group of more powerful people have to confer empowerment upon us. And I think that's okay. But I heard a comment from Sally Krawcheck, who is a former CEO of Merrill Lynch, and she led Merrill Lynch through a tough time in 2007, 2008 during the last significant downturn. And she says that exactly that, is that waiting for a more powerful group to empower you is not very helpful to yourself. And so I'd like to say that this is really all about self-recognition, that you really can do this, that you have the power, you just have to decide it. But what's helpful, what really makes that possible, is the right information. And that's, I think, where we have really missed a lot. I know as a female, that's true for me. Lots of information missing, so I want to offer some information and also to remind us all that community is so important, to have the support and just people around you that recognize what's going on, that will help you, that will support you and cheer you on. And it really makes all the difference when you're trying to make a change in your life. So I'd like to cover 3 key points that I think are really important, things that I learned along the way that would have helped me immensely had I learned them a lot sooner. And that is to understand interest, how interest works, both positive and negative interest. Now, interest has no particular plus or minus, it's just how it's used. Positive interest, of course, is your reward for investing or saving, and negative interest meaning the cost of borrowing. And then debt. We really need to talk about debt, because debt is the thief who will truly make you a slave and reduce your options in life. I found that from personal experience, and I think it's really important to remember that. Doesn't mean all debt is bad, but it can be a problem. And the fact that we do live in a debt-fueled economy, and that seems to be driving a good part of the economy, and that people are not building their future. So an important point, key within thinking about building a future and trying to make your future better than it is today, is to think about this big bang or consistent growth. And I say that because, a lot of people, myself included, I've done this in the past. Oh, if I just could get that winning lotto ticket, if I could just get a little inheritance or save a little pot of money, I could take care of all of my problems. And unfortunately, that almost never happens. So consequently, things don't change. So just to kind of show you what that looks like and how flawed that thinking is, the way I found it is, let me say I offer you a gift of one of the following choices. Which would you choose? I could hand you $1 million, or I could give you a penny today and we could double it every day for 30 days. What would be your choice? Well, if you chose the $1 million, you'd have a lot of company. That's usually what people go for. But here's the thing. If you chose the penny doubled every day for 30 days, here's what you'd have at the end of 30 days. Almost $5.4 million. See, the key here is starting small and building consistently over a period of time. That's really the magic of building a future. And so many of us never learned that. This is especially an important point for young people who have time on their side, because you've got a much longer life when you can start small and be consistent and have a long period of time. And it's that long period of time that makes that interest most effective and most powerful for you. You know, the financial experts out there recommend and advise that the average 65-year-old who wants to retire have between $1 million and $1.5 million set aside. Well, how are we doing? The reality is the average American has between $0 and $25,000 set aside. That's a far cry from the recommendation. And if you think about it, probably not going to get you very far if you really want to have some future built where you don't have to work. So really, why is that? Well, there are lots of reasons, but the biggest reason, I believe, is financial illiteracy. It's everything I've read and everything I've seen and everything I've experienced, and I think this is true. It's the #1 economic crisis in the world, not just here, but everywhere. Introducing financial literacy to our children is really critical at an early age. I pulled out some of these stats just as general stats. They're important to know, and they also point to a lot of other systemic issues. But the fact is, people are not saving enough. You can see that. 188,000 if you happen to be white, 24,000 if you happen to be black. Not great. But only 30% of the world, the people in the world, are financially literate. This comes from How Money Works in 2019. And actually, as I read, I think that's true. Why is this such a big business? Well, if we look at the 4 largest debts in the United States that total over $19 trillion, that's a lot of money. With all of the car loans, credit cards, student loans, mortgages, if you add all of that up, it's about $19 trillion. And when you think about that and you think about the kind of interest that accrues on that much debt, it's the interest that you have to pay on that, and each of us has a little piece of that. But you think about that and you realize how significant that debt really is. And that's why it's such big business, because the interest is positive for the lenders, only negative for you. So let's look at how interest works with that debt. And let's take a look at the 3 most common debts that everybody probably has on average. Mortgage debt, of course, will be your largest in general. Student debt is now second only to mortgage, and then credit card debt. Did you know that the average household will spend almost 35 cents of every dollar to pay interest on their debt? 35 cents of every dollar. That's a significant amount of money going out to pay your debt, just in addition to what you owe. So let's take a look at a mortgage. This is, not everybody has one, but it's probably the largest loan that anyone will take out in any given time, chances are, unless you go to school for professional education. That may be it. But let's just take an example of a $200,000 house on a 30-year fixed mortgage at 4.5%. Now, it's not a great percentage, but it's not bad. So you're thinking, 4.5% of 200,000, nah, I can swing that. Okay, that's fine. $1,013 a month for your payment, not bad. So you start making your payments for the first year, And that's wonderful. You stay on track, you make your payments, but at the end of the year, if you look at your statement, you've only paid about $3,000 towards the interest and $9,000, or excuse me, towards the principal and $9,000 to interest. That's a pretty nice check to the bank. They like that. It's a great tip. 73% of your payment the first year is going to interest. So it gets a little better the second year. Okay, 72%. But it's still about the same mix. You're still paying just a little over $3,000 towards your principal and still close to $9,000 to the bank. Now, this is not illegal. We all sign the papers when we agree to a mortgage. This is how mortgage is set up. This is how lenders have it set. But the key is that people don't understand exactly how this works. And when they think 4.5% of 200,000, they're not thinking that it's going to compound over time and that the interest gets taken out up front. It's also critical to understand this in that first 1 to 15 years of a mortgage, when refinancing is they're chasing after you for refinancing because, wow, you know, they can get you a better percentage and all that. It's great. And maybe they can lower your payment $100, maybe $150, and that sounds really good. But what people don't realize is that resets the clock to year zero, and now you're back to 73% of your payment going to interest and very little of it going to your principal. This is the hardest period, the first 10 to 15 years of your mortgage, but it's also the period that people don't understand is the most impactful time when you can really make a difference in the length of your mortgage and how much interest you pay. I'm not going to go into that in great detail now, but it's something that is really important to understand. And banks are not going to offer that information to you unless you ask. And even at that, it may not be clear. All right, so let's fast forward to 20 years. You've paid off your mortgage, or excuse me, you've paid 20 years and you've paid $243,000 totally on your $200,000 loan, but you still owe $97,000 and you have 10 more years to pay. This is the part people don't really think about. And then let's go to 30 years. Assuming you did not refinance, you will have paid off your mortgage, yay, but you will have paid $365,000 on your $200,000 loan, which means that you paid the bank $83,000 over and above the cost of the loan or the amount of the loan. Again, not illegal. We signed the papers, but because we don't understand it, we end up paying more. And that's the price for paying more, is not understanding. So let's just briefly look at student debt. This is the second highest amount of debt. There are 45 million borrowers collectively who owe about $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. Now, that's a pretty significant amount of money, but the really sad part is that about 11% of the people who are due to be in repayment for these loans have defaulted. Now that's even scarier when you think about the amount of money that is now going to have to somehow get paid back. Important things to know about student debt, and these are things that I have looked at carefully. Now, I don't claim to be an expert at it, but here's what I have found out in my study. Student debt is rarely erased with bankruptcy. It can be, but it's really difficult because the laws have changed. And in order to qualify for that, it takes a whole lot of paperwork and maneuvering to get that to happen, but it doesn't happen often. Defaulting on student debt can affect you for the rest of your life, and that's a very long time. Because bad credit can really make things difficult. Whenever you apply for anything, one of the first things they often check for is your credit rating. You apply for jobs, they actually will check. If you want to rent a place, or you want to start a business and get a loan, or obtain insurance. These are difficult things to do if your credit rating has tanked because you've defaulted on student loans. The other thing to know about student loans is that those forgiveness programs can be really good. There are some good ones. They're a little bit tricky to be able to navigate, and they have lots of rules and regulations, and you can qualify, but it's difficult. But the thing to know about student loan forgiveness programs is you can end up paying more. It can cost you more getting one of those forgiveness programs than it would if you simply paid off the loan. I was kind of shocked when I saw that, but it really is true. So credit card debt. Well, NerdWallet says that in 2019, the average household paid about $1,200 in interest for the year in credit card debt. Well, if you think about it, the fact that and this was as of last fall, in 2020, credit card debt for Americans rose to 926 billion with a B. And you think about the interest on 926 billion, that's a lot of interest. Now, there were some changes in Q2 because of the pandemic, and so a lot of people were paying off, but when we entered into Q3 and 4, it started to rise again. So the changes that have come over time that have made a lot of this happen is partly wages have been stagnating since the 90s. Cost of living has continued to rise. And tax law changes have eroded our consumer tax benefits. When you own a home and you're in I remember many years people would say, oh, I don't want to pay off my mortgage because I can deduct the interest on my income tax. Well, that may or may not be an advantage, but now the laws have changed such that that isn't always true, and you can't just simply right off the top deduct your interest payments. So be careful about that too. Of course, the uncertain job market has pushed more and more people to seek more training, more education. Either they want to get a better job, or they want to find a new job, start a new career, advance the career they have. Any reasons for new training and education, and this has caused people to create more educational debt. Well, sometimes, depending on how old you are or at what age you do that, the return on investment may or may not be what you think it's going to be. So it might set you back further. The cost of education also has been climbing significantly since the 1990s, which of course contributes to the problem of having more debt. And in all of this, the average American household makes about $58,000 a year. Now, this is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. If that's the average, and the average family has about $188,000 in debt, which is also the average, you can see where the skew happens. Here's a telling statistic. Money Watch says that nearly 40% of Americans can't cover a surprise $400 expense. Maybe the water heater blows, or you blow a tie rod on your car, or you blow a couple of tires and you have to replace them. That's a tough one. And yet, 41% say, yeah, we're doing okay. So where are women in all of these stats? Well, let's take a look at that. Payscale.com, and Payscale took women across the country and disregarded what level they were at, whether they were professional, how long they've been in their careers, or how new they were, or whether they were service workers, doesn't matter. They took all female salaries and averaged them across the country and came out to say women make 81 cents to the dollar versus men. Now, I know we all know that. We're all very aware of it, I'm sure. But sometimes 81 cents doesn't sound like such a big deal. But when you consider the difference that just pennies short of a dollar can make over a 40-year career, it can amount to a whopping amount of money that you're missing out on. And of course, depending on racial and ethnic groups, can have even a greater effect. And in order to catch up would take sometimes years. So I did a really quick calculation just to show you what this means. And this goes back to our small amount incrementally over time. Let's just say as a female worker, you're making that whole dollar. And so you've got the extra 19 cents. And I'm just, we're just pretending it's a dollar that you're making. Okay, I know that's silly, but just to make a point. If you're making that dollar and you're saving that 19 cents every single paycheck, which would be biweekly for 40 years. Here at 2% compounded monthly, here is what you would accrue over a 40-year career. Now, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's significant. It's halfway to $500,000, a little more than halfway. That's a lot of money. So gender wealth gap issues, we used to call it pay gap issues, and people still do. Again, Sally Krawcheck saying, but it's really more than just pay that's important. It's the total picture of wealth that we can accumulate to secure our future. So it's harder, we all know it's harder for women to save or invest for retirement because first of all, we're making less. But also, women remain responsible for the majority of unpaid work outside in and out of the home. I know I've experienced it, and this dilutes your time and your income. Statistically, women live longer and therefore face higher healthcare costs. And of course, we all know about the lovely pink tax. I'm quite sure you're all probably very aware of that. I know I notice it every time I go someplace like the dry cleaners, or when I buy clothing and I look at sort of comparable clothing between men and women, shoes, blouses, shirts, jackets, always a big difference, and a big difference in quality as well. So pink tax really extracts a lot. So a little bit more of the fallout, women have higher levels of student debt and take longer to repay because of lower pay. Higher levels of student debt because more and more women are going to college or returning to college, hoping to improve their career and advance themselves faster because they are making less. And as the result of a divorce or death of a spouse, women always experience greater financial shock, or in general do. I can't say that that's true for every case, but in general, they do. And based on a lifetime of lower wages, Social Security payments are lower for women because Social Security payments are based on what you make over the life of your career. So I have to ask the question, and I did ask the question of myself, well, why is it that people are not reaching their financial goals, if they have financial goals? And I believe that the problem is that it's too easy not to. I know this has been true for myself. It's just easy to, I'm getting my bills paid, everything's okay, I'm doing okay. And because it's just so easy and convenient not to, many people don't. But I think the illiteracy also factors in. So a little bit about myself. I started out with very little, very poor, came from an immigrant family, and we didn't have very much and lots of kids. No financial education, really, and not a lot of encouragement. In fact, when I was in 7th grade, it was about the time that math was changing, and I'd been really good in math up until that point. But in 7th grade, they brought in new math. Not sure exactly what that was supposed to be, but somehow it was different. And so I was learning this new math, or trying to figure out how to do this new way of doing algebra, and I was really having a hard time. Well, I happened to have a teacher who, for whatever reason, was not too crazy about me, and so she would just as soon not have to bother. Well, I went to ask her a question one day, and she looked at it, and I was trying to figure out how to figure this problem, and I couldn't quite get it, and she patted me on the head and said, "Don't worry your pretty little head, dear. You won't need it when you're doing your grocery list." Now, I was 13 at the time, and I didn't really know what that meant, but I thought, awesome, I don't have to do anything. And I didn't, and she didn't care. She passed me with a C, and I never did math in 7th grade again, which was really a shame. But the long-term effects of that were that I was thinking to myself, oh, well, girls really don't need this. Well, women can't do this. I can't do math. I just can't do that. Nah, I don't need it. And I went through the rest of high school, junior high and high school, really not doing much math. Later on, I did. I just rediscovered it. But it was really a big turning point for me. And consequently, I tumbled along, just kind of taking whatever jobs I could find, doing this, doing that, no goals, didn't really understand, no financial literacy, just kind of didn't know what I was doing. And believe me, I made every possible career financial mistake that you could make. I've done it all. And at one point, I finally figured out that, you know what? Someday I'm not going to want to do this, and I'm not going to be able to stop doing it because I don't have enough money. And what I learned from all of this was that it's never too late to improve your life. But I also found out that wishing and hoping that it would change and improve wasn't going to change and improve it. I would have to take the reins of my life and actually make a difference. And that's when I began to really study and find a community of women to support and help me. And, you know, really, as women, as Wsource women, we do work together to improve our lives and to support each other, to create safe place for women to get guidance, and also a springboard to a better future. That's what we're all about. We're all here for each other. And as a member of Wsource, I also have found that that is really good. And I have some suggestions that I've learned that I think would help a future. First of all, set goals. If you don't have any goals, you might want to think about that, because it's hard to know where you're going and to measure that if you don't know where you're headed. And for sure, get out of debt. This, I discovered, will keep you right in place more firmly than anything else, because it reduces your options. You can't do much else if you're in debt. You can't think about, maybe it's hard to think about changing your career or trying for another job that might be a little bit less but gain in experience, any of those things, because you're trapped. And of course, find a good financial advisor. There are many of them in the Wsource and lots of places, but that person could help you craft a financial strategy that works for your lifestyle, not somebody else's and not some ideal that, you know, but what works for you. And that was the key for me. Also, to remember that it's not how much money you make, it's how much extra you're able to bring in that will protect and build your future. And also to understand that it's not just about money. Really, it's not. It's about how you value yourself, your own value in the world, what you have to offer, and your future. So my mission truly is to help people, particularly helping women, stop overpaying interest on their debt and imagine a better future, because they really can, for themselves, one person or one family at a time. You know, it's really true. You cannot stop an idea whose time has come, because when it's time, it will go regardless of whether you like it or not. And I do what I do because I believe the time has come, that if we as women sincerely want to improve our own lives and really come into our full power to make a difference in the world, to really carry out the missions that each of us has, we must step up and make that happen, because believe me, it's really true. Nobody is going to do it for us or hand it to us. We just have to do it. So it's truly my wish that you can find hope, and that you might find hope in some of this, in spite of the fact that there's a lot of statistics, and a belief that your future can be better. I'd love to have a conversation and talk about your story and see if we can explore how we can make your tomorrow better than your today. And I am Jennie James, a financial wellness coach with a different answer. Thank you very much.
Wow, Jenny, I was really taking notes, and I'm sure our audience is enjoying it as well. I'm really grateful to have you on the line, and I also just think there are no stupid questions, especially in the Wsource, and it's okay to go back to the basics and say, you know, as a financial advisor myself, when I initially looked at your presentation, I was like, these are things that everybody should review at least annually as good reminders.
Yes.
And I know we have a ton of various different types of debt specialists, whether it's reverse mortgage or traditional financing, small business lending. And that's one of the reasons I think partnering with Jennie is such a key importance, is that while many of our mortgage lenders and debt specialists in the Wsource are educational, they're not helping you get through that stupid question that maybe you're too afraid to ask. And I think your experience with your lender is going to be better partnering with Jennie. one of the questions that came from the audience is how do people engage a financial wellness coach or different answer coach like yourselves? Is it an hourly engagement? Is it a project? Talk to us a little bit about how you actually grow your practice and your business.
Yes, thank you. So what I do is I engage by, first of all, meeting people, finding people, and when they're interested in, when they contact me because maybe they want to get out of debt, or they go to my site and they fill out the little thing that says, hey, help me out. What I do is I start out with a free analysis. I sit down with them and we go through their debt. I don't need anything personal. I don't need bank numbers and social numbers and all that, just the numbers in their debt. I can do an analysis of that information and I can show them exactly how they can change that immediately, how things can start changing, and exactly when they could be out of debt and how much they can save both in time and interest payments. And it's significant. If they decide that that's something they want to work with me on, then at that point, I have a program that I can offer them. If they decide they want the program, they purchase it. And once they have it for life. And then they are free to check in with me, but I also have a whole staff of people that are 24/7 available when they have questions. They want to, can you walk me through how to do that again? This sort of thing. And they are financial experts. But I end up talking to people and explaining, this is not just a get out of debt. This is great. Getting out of debt is awesome, but it's also sort of a money management system. So they learn that, oh, I could do a what if scenario. Okay, what if we got a house and we've paid off this, maybe credit cards, we're still on the mortgage, but we want to buy maybe an RV or a new car. They can plug that in as a what if scenario and they can see precisely how their long-term financial picture will be affected by that purchase and how much they're going to pay for it.
That's great. I love that. Well, Jenny, this has been super informative. I think it's a great 2021 kickoff. This is our first wisdom series of the new year. And I know we all have, those resolutions or goals, whether we like to admit them or not. We do have things that we're like, you know what, I didn't get to that last year. I'm going to focus on that. So please connect with Jenny if you're on the line and you want to know more about how she could educate your clients. She'd be a great speaker for that, as well as how to connect with her in the Seattle chapter. In this world of virtual, I think we can find ways to work together in all ways. Jenny, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hannah. It was a pleasure.